Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Social Work Bubble podcast. I'm your host, Laura. I'm a licensed master social worker here in New York, and today we welcome our special guest, Karina, who will be talking all about her journey to social work, including things from having her own mental health diagnoses, coping with client loss, working in a halfway house, and case management. I mean, we're touching on a lot today, which is really exciting. So thank you so much, Karina, for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Laura, for having me. I'm super excited.
That's great. Now, for those listening, before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and follow the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, and we'll kind of jump in. So, Karina, again, thank you for coming on. As we get started, can you just introduce yourself to the listeners, kind of your background and what you're currently doing?
Yeah. So, again, my name is Karina. I'm currently a Health Navigation Supervisor at an outpatient mental health clinic. So what that means is kind of focusing on integrated care. So bringing, physical health care and mental health kind of together and, being able to access it in the same location. And I'm also currently a social work student. I'm going from MSW and I'll be finishing next May, which I'm super, super excited about. Can't wait.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Okay. Now, I mean, you've been kind of in the field. You're getting your MSW now. Can you describe to us just your journey in social work? Like what kind of things or experiences even got you to pursuing this field?
Yeah, so I've been pretty much in the human services field for about over 15 years. I basically started when I was like 20. I'm 36 now. But I pretty much always wanted to help people. That's really been the biggest draw to it. Again, as a kid, I wanted to be a firefighter. Then I realized you have to fight fires. And I was like, no, thank you. Right. And then I wanted to be an eye doctor. I worked also. So I wanted to be an eye doctor. And then again, we had to dissect an eye in science class. And I was like, yeah, no, not going to happen. Right.
Not for me.
So I realized with that the biggest thing behind it was about helping people and again, making a difference. So as a senior in high school, a counselor kind of guided me into social work or explained what social work was. And from that moment on, I knew I'm going to be a social worker. Right. That was the dream. That was the goal. And it's been that since 17, 18 years old. So a lot of it too, again, just growing up being Latina, my parents were both, immigrants. So I think just seeing their struggles. Again, my mom didn't speak, English. So a lot of times at homework, we had like different neighbors help us and stuff like that. So the biggest thing, again, just kind of advocating for people, helping them get the resources, helping them get the support. And a lot of it was, being able to kind of give back the help that I did receive, as a child and throughout my life. And then also there was times where I didn't have support, whether it was family or just in general. So I think also kind of like filling that gap and giving back the support that I didn't have as a kid or as a teenager. So I think those are two of the biggest things that have pushed me to want to be a social worker or again, just kind of work in that profession. Like I said, helping others and giving back to the community for sure.
Absolutely. I feel like for so many social workers, it's kind of like, okay, I want to help others, I want to advocate, I want to support, and it's just a matter of finding social work in order to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I had a coworker once say, like, if you're in this field, it's because you've experienced life. Like you've had things happen to you, you've had, not so much trauma, but just seeing life in a different way. So it's again, you wanting to kind of give back to that. So that's definitely a big thing. And like I said, I got lucky. I knew someone who worked in a halfway house when I was doing community college at the time. So I got into that around like 19 years old. And I think, again, which sounds crazy saying it out loud, because, again, I was like kind of still figuring out who I was and, just life in general. And going into that was like, whoa. But again, it really, really helped me. And being there really, again, solidified like this is the field that I'm meant to be in and this is what I want to do. Again, just seeing a lot of like, the stigmas, the bias around, individuals who are incarcerated. Again, I had a lot of people ask me like, aren't you scared of, working in that setting? And it's like, no, why would I? Right. They're human beings. Right. And again, working there and hearing their stories, we had morning meetings and each day a different individual would share their story. So just hearing, again, really getting to know them as a person and then really hearing how they ended up there. And again, really seeing like, okay, there was, they didn't have family support or there was, maybe again, society felt them or, the system felt them. So really realizing that again, that I was one mistake away of being in their shoes instead of, and that was again, the biggest thing, again, just realizing like, why this type of work is needed. And again, really solidifying like, this is what I want to do. And this is, where I'm meant to be.
Absolutely. Just a lot of empathy too. I mean, coming from those different experiences, we're able to be like, oh, I could just as easily be in this person's position.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It's scary, but again, it just makes you realize, like, again, just being able to give back and
Mhm.
kind of give that support. So yeah, I did that for about 4 years. Again, it was more administrative in a sense, or more like, again, we did health checks and took
Mhm.
them to outings, linking them to their doctors and things like that, because they were technically still incarcerated. But again, the point of halfway house is it is kind of integrating back into society.
Mhm.
So, within, again, the limits of them being incarcerated,
Yeah.
so we were kind of working with that. But again, so it was a lot of just different groups, coping skills groups, AA, NA,
Mhm.
self-esteem groups, things like that we kind of did with the women. It was a women's program. And then we did
Okay.
have a few that were paroled and still staying there. So again, it was like a residential program for them. So again, it was also a lot of like life skills groups, employment services, like, and kind of just connecting
Mhm.
them to society and things like that. When that ended, I did a bit of retail for a while in
Yeah.
insurance, but it was funny. I was kind of connected back to helping people.
Mhm.
Even with retail, it's just helping people find, the right outfit or the right thing,
Yeah.
right? The right earrings, things like that. And then insurance, I did, it was again taking the calls
Mhm.
for a claim. And same thing, I feel like it was the way I saw that was like they were in crisis, they were in trauma.
Yeah.
So again, being able to kind of provide that support and, help them, again, get the help that they
Yeah.
need to get their car repaired, right? So I always feel like even when I wasn't in the field, in the profession,
Mhm.
I was still again finding ways of helping people and connecting them,
Yeah.
to resources and things like that.
Absolutely. That's so interesting because I have seen quite a few social workers go into like the insurance world, because I think we have a lot of experience working with insurance, so it makes sense. And
True.
there's a lot of versatility with our skills where if we need to, we can kind of jump to something else and it works.
Yeah, agree. Because I feel like at the end of the day, really the baseline with social work is people, right? And just helping
Hmm.
people. So I feel like, that's the way I think we kind of fit anywhere. And that's the beautiful part of our profession, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, after that, I went back to school for my bachelor's in human services.
Awesome.
And again, with there, I kind of was kind of getting back into the profession. I did my internship at Think Together, which is like an after school program.
Okay.
So kind of work with teenagers at the time, and then also with Beverly's House, which is connected to like more like foster care.
Hmm.
So individuals that were emancipated basically. So it was either for them or I had one who was technically like her kid that they were kind of providing the support to. So it was more tutoring,
Hmm.
in those kind of two settings. But again, it was just amazing to be back in that setting and
Yeah.
helping individuals. And like I said, really biggest thing linking to resources, and things like that. And then when I graduated, with my bachelor's, then I went into, mental health, and I've been pretty much in community mental health, since
Hmm.
2015. Started as a case manager. I've also done, employment services, both employment specialist and job developer.
Hmm.
And then, case management, and then mixed also with the health navigation, which, like I said, it's back to integrated care and just linking them, to the primary care doctors. With that in general, it's really, again, helping them, like advocate for themselves and navigate like the medical system. We know how overwhelming
Yeah.
and frustrating that can be at
Oh,
times.
yeah.
you know, so when you add a mental, illness on top of that and trying to, navigate that system alone, again, that's where we come in as health navigators and helping them, again, teach them the skills and help them advocate for themselves.
Amazing. You really had quite a lot of really awesome experiences. Really that I don't know, like that authentic social work experience where like now, because I've been practicing as a therapist and there's a part of me that just like misses, I don't know, like when you think about social work, I think about like that case management, that like boots on the ground work. And, there's something about it that is so powerful to do that kind of work and support people in that way.
Yes, I agree. I mean, the past 2 or 3 years, I've been a supervisor, again, running our health navigation program, and it's been more administrative. And I do miss that. And when they come, my team comes out to me and asks questions and support, and I'm like, oh, I miss that. I miss, even if it's like stressful and like, I don't know what to do with this client, it's like, oh, I miss that again, right? We're in it because of that, even
Yeah.
again, if it's the heartache that comes with it, with this type of work, it's still such a beautiful thing. And, and I
Mhm.
love that. So.
Absolutely. Oh, that's amazing. So a lot of great, I mean, you really started off just jumping right into social work when you were very young. That's cool. Amazing. Now, I mean, you had mentioned to me before we met today that you've been diagnosed with PTSD, major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety. I'm wondering like how that has shaped you as a social worker.
Yes, I think again, I got the diagnosis pretty much. I was like 21, 22.
Oh.
And I think I've always felt out of place. Always felt,
Mm-hmm.
just an outsider. And I think once I kind of got those diagnoses, it really just made sense for me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, life really just connected of like, oh, this is why this happens or that happens or
Mm-hmm.
why I do that or do this type thing, right? It really just made sense. And again, in doing that, I think it was kind of just a battle with myself. Again, the bias that comes in, right? The
Mm-hmm.
shame, the guilt with all of this. And then going into the mental health field in general, it really just helped me kind of come to realizations with those things and be more self-aware of like, oh crap. Here I'm telling my clients to take their medication, right? to take care of themselves, to advocate for themselves, but yet I'm not doing the same, right? So I think it
Yeah.
really, more than anything, it helped me be accountable and it helped me really just be more, I think, more present and real with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, really, again, utilizing my experiences, with them and just being able to be more, I think, authentic and share with them. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I understand what you're going through and actually really understand, right?
Yeah.
Really knowing what that was. So I think it's really, again, really helped me just be real with my clients and,
Mm-hmm.
say not sugarcoat things. And again, the thing too is now that I'm like, I won't ask something of my clients that I wouldn't necessarily do myself as well
Mm-hmm.
for my own treatment, right? Like I said, now I really understand again, like the struggle with taking medications and what that
Mm-hmm.
means. And, again, those internal conversations that come up when, they tell you you need to take this or you have this diagnosis. So I think again, it really, really more putting myself in their shoes and again,
Mm-hmm.
really understanding what comes up at that time. Like I said,
Yeah.
really just having again, those candid conversations. Again, I've struggled a lot with like suicidality and things like that. So again, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to, just be open about that and let them know, like, it is, we're just having a conversation. Like, sometimes, life is crazy at times and,
Yeah.
sometimes you have those thoughts and that's okay. So I think, again, a lot of that, the more I've worked on myself, the more I feel like I can be a better therapist or better
Mm-hmm.
clinician. For my clients. I had a client who, I'm a very emotional person and we're sharing about we're just talking about feelings and emotions. And I
Mm-hmm.
shared that, I cry at movies, like any movie. It could be a cartoon and I'll be crying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember she ended up sharing in our next session, she was having a rough day and she said, I was having a rough day. I wanted to cry. And then I told myself, Karina cries, so it's okay to cry.
Oh,
And
what a
I was like,
moment.
oh, yeah. And it just meant so much that again, it's having a normal conversation again, being me.
Mm-hmm.
Just sharing, yeah, I cry at cartoons, and my husband teases me about it. And then her sharing that. So again, it really just, again, having these things is not a bad thing. Again, if anything, it makes me a better clinician because I
Yeah.
can share those little things and really connect with my clients. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
before doing termination, I knew it was hard for the clients, but I was kind of like, oh, they'll be fine, right? But until I
Right.
had to terminate with my own therapist,
Oof.
yeah, I remember that door closed behind us and I
Mm-hmm.
just started sobbing, right? And then I was like, oh crap, like this is hard,
Mm-hmm.
So again, now I have a different viewpoint of terminating with clients and things
Yeah.
like that. So again, as I experience things, again, with the pandemic hit and trying to find a new therapist, how difficult that was. And then I understand how my clients feel, again, when they're trying to find services and, you're given a list of phone numbers and you're calling and they don't answer and things like that. So again, I feel like having my own struggles and having my own experiences in this way has helped me really understand the client experience. And I think more
Mm-hmm.
really, again, be able to connect with them and have more empathy and sympathy and, again, just kind of really be there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that myself too, because I mean, I've had similar experiences with my mental health. And I think although as social workers, you obviously don't have to have bad things happen to you in order to,
Yeah.
like show up for clients, but there is just a different, I don't know, like kind of connection and ability to just see and hear a client for what they're saying. Because there
Yeah.
have been times when, I mean, I started off doing like trauma counseling and everything, and I've had a diagnosis of PTSD as well. And there have been moments where I think I've been able to frame things to clients that had I not had my own experience, I would not be able to articulate like those certain things that really resonated for them. And so it's certainly obviously would have loved to not have these experiences,
Yeah.
but it's just like, all right. I mean, it works. Like clients are healing from how we're able to relate to them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, me and a friend always talk about that, and I was like, now I see it as my superpower, and I was like, okay, if if it had to happen so I can help others, and then so be it. But it's like if I could go back, in truth, I definitely would be like, yeah, no, no
Yeah.
to the
No
trauma,
thanks.
please. Yeah, next.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Now, I mean, has that affected how you do the work at all? Has there been any moments that have been triggering or that have made it difficult to cope with the work given these different mental health concerns?
Definitely more in the beginning, like, again, with having a diagnosis of PTSD, the
Mm-hmm.
trauma for sure, it was triggering in the beginning, hearing certain stories. Again, I was lucky again that I started therapy kind of early on before I really jumped into, more into the profession, like as a case manager and doing more things like that. But yeah, that was definitely hard, but I think I've been very lucky to have amazing and supportive supervisors,
Oh, great.
who I've been able to, again, kind of check in with. And like I said, I've been doing therapy pretty much since 2011, on and off.
Mm-hmm.
So having that support as well has been a huge help. But yeah, there's been moments where again, more with the abuse or sexual trauma that has been triggering
Mm-hmm.
for me. But like I said, knowing that I'm just a hypersensitive person to begin with. And then on top
Yeah.
of, my experiences and things like that, I am very self-aware. And like I said, I've learned again to really communicate with my supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
And not just my supervisors, but my team in general. I really lean into my coworkers, again, utilize that support system. And then again, my husband, friends, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. But like I said, knowing that, who I am, I always kind of have that, that safety net,
Yeah.
resources for myself, to check in, like I said, and really just utilizing supervision,
Mm-hmm.
and talking about what comes up for me and things like that. Like, I always understand that, my supervisor is not my therapist. But I do
Right.
feel that, you do have to have these candid conversations
Mm-hmm.
and again, be very open about what's coming up for you as well
Yeah.
at work.
Absolutely. Just that like sense of connection to other people too, and being able to be vulnerable and get that support is so valuable. Because I think it's easy to just be like, oh, whatever, and like isolate ourselves in some
Yeah.
way when, I mean, there's people there they want to show up for us. And so we can kind of take them up on that.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I was a case manager, we would joke around. We called my office the crying office. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of where we all kind of, we would all kind of meet up and just, again, just support each other and vent and whatever. As long as we didn't have a client, it was like, do you have a minute? Do you have a second? Like, this
Mm-hmm.
happened, that happened. And again, they were like, yeah, this is the office where you can come and cry, and
Yeah.
it's okay type thing. So yeah, just again, allowing yourself to feel whatever comes up and, not judging yourself for it.
Absolutely. Do you have any other like coping skills or ways that you've coped that have been particularly helpful in those moments?
I mean, definitely exit therapy has been a huge one for
Yeah.
me. Music as well. I love listening to music. So one thing that, usually when I would leave like the office or leave work, in my car, again, I have like a
Mm-hmm.
personal concert, so just
That's
listening
right.
to certain music, certain songs, or just any music in general. And like I said, I'll scream it out, dance it out. That really, really helps. I go on walks pretty much every day with my dog's also huge support.
Oh, love that.
Reaching out to friends, again, going out dancing. I love journaling as well. I'm a big, huge journaler, letting out my thoughts, processing it that way. I'm also kind of crafty, so I love building different crafts. I'm not the best artist, but I do love drawing and coloring, so I do
Love
that as well.
it.
And then I love tattoos, so that's also my own form of therapy. I'll go get,
Oh,
tattoos and things
great.
like that, and that helps me heal as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's so funny that you talk about just like not being a great artist because I'm the same way. We're like, I want to be a good painter, but I'm not. But I still paint because it's
Yeah,
fun. It's a great release. And it's like, you know what? You don't have to
exactly.
be good at something in order to do it and have it help.
Exactly. It's more of just having fun with it and just letting it
Yeah.
out. Like, I'm not gonna sell it to anyone. No one's gonna, see it. It's okay. It's more for me and letting out the frustration or emotions or whatever is there.
Absolutely. Wow, that's wonderful. Now, I know earlier we had touched on just me mentioning real quick that you have experienced two client losses,
Yeah.
and both of those from clients completing a suicide. I mean, just obviously very difficult, very traumatic. Can you describe just like your process moving through a loss like that?
Yeah, The first one I realized that I really hadn't processed, and I feel like maybe that's when the second one happened. I think it hit me even harder.
Right.
The first one, again, it happened at the halfway house, and so it was really more of just like they let us know, and it was more like let the rest of the residents know. And again, the focus was really more on making sure they were okay.
Mhm.
But no one ever really asked me or again us as the staff, like, are
Mm.
you okay? This is an individual who had been there for years.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, I felt like, okay, well, what about my feelings type thing?
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was never really dealt with in that sense. The second one, again, which I think why it hit me harder, but this one, I started working with them pretty much when I first started working at that agency. So I've
Mhm.
been working with them pretty much 2.5 years at this point. So
Wow.
not only was really my first client, my first client like after my bachelor's, my first client there, and again, also my first real loss that I
Yeah.
had experienced. So that one really, really hit me hard. I also realized the way that it was handled. I was basically told that it happened in front of the whole staff. I had come back from a home visit, and I went into one of our offices where we had our file room basically. And they were having a meeting. They had just received the news, and everyone was kind of like, "Oh crap, Karina's here, right?" And then instead of being taken outside and just having a moment, they shared in front of everyone. So of course everyone's watching me, I started crying and,
Oh
so
my
yeah, so
gosh.
that in itself was traumatic. So I feel like that added to my experience. But again, given all of that, there was a lot of, I think, guilt, a lot of like, things that I could have done differently, things that, again, feeling like I failed my client, like I
Mhm.
wasn't there, I could have done more. Um, you know, type of thing, which I think it's normal for
Right.
us, right? Because it's like we're the helpers, we're supposed to save
Mhm.
and protect people. So I felt like I failed them. Again, their their sister came to the clinic also to let us know, and she approached me and she said she thanked me for all the work that I did with the client and said, like, they had a difficult life, but she's like, I'm hurting, this is hard, but I feel like, it was gonna happen,
Mhm.
one eventually anyways, type thing. And again, just they really thanked me for the work that I did.
Yeah.
And and again, I really try to like hold on to that, but it was really hard. Like I said, I really blame myself. I came really close to quitting my job and even consider like, is this field even for me?
Right.
Like
Mhm.
can I do this? Because at that time I was in therapy, so a lot of my therapy revolved around processing the loss.
Mhm.
And again, my therapist really helped me kind of reality test and like, what else could you have done? Right? We
Mhm.
went over everything, and then she's like, aside from you literally being in their home with them,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous, right? She's like, what else could you have done?
Mhm.
You're right, nothing.
Yeah.
like we did everything, right? I mean, we had a couple voluntary hospitalizations with her. Again, we created different tools. They kind of have different like a learning, I guess, like disabilities. So we
Mhm.
created like a color code chart. So
Right.
again, where she had coping skills, which, she had a difficult time expressing herself. So we would say, I'm feeling red right now, right? So we kind of had a chart of like what each color meant for her. And again, coping skills for each color.
Mhm. I
Again,
love that.
thank you. Every time, because she was high risk, pretty much every session, again, we would always kind of discuss where are you at, what color are you
Yeah.
feeling? And again, I always kind of reviewed that plan with her, the safety
Mhm.
plan, for that same reason. So again, everyone kept telling me like you did everything you could, but like I said, I couldn't help but shake that I didn't. That there was
Mhm.
still more that I could have done.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think just working again with my when therapy, it really helped me realize that at the end of the day, everyone has their own choice,
Mhm.
and they're going to do what they're going to do, and it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with us as the helpers or the professionals. So I think really, again, it took me some time to get there.
Mhm.
Um, but I was able to again to kind of let go of that guilt and then really see all the work that we did together and really
Yeah.
see how much I did help her. Even though it ended in that way, it's like that
Mhm.
doesn't matter. That doesn't define the work that you did, and again, also
Absolutely.
remembering how many times she herself even told me, like, oh my God, you've helped me so much. And we were sometimes laugh. She would be like,
Mhm.
oh, you're better than my therapist, because I was a case manager at the time, and she would always tell me, like, you need to go back to school, you need to be a therapist. She's like, she would battle with like, I don't want you to because then you're going to leave me. She goes,
Mhm.
but again, this is, she's like, you're great at this. You need to be a therapist, type thing. So again, like just, yeah, letting go again of the guilt and really listening
Mhm.
to to everyone, and even her words of all the work that we did together.
Absolutely.
I was able to let that go. And like I said, also realizing too that, again, that it was handled not the best way, at my agency.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it was handled well at all.
No.
Awful.
No, not at all. So I think, also kind of realizing that and processing that of like, again, it wasn't you, it was just wasn't handled well. And again, you weren't given that support or those resources, that you needed in that time. And I feel like I try to find different grief groups as well. And it was really hard to find one for more of like the professional.
Right.
Again, it was kind of receiving more of the message of like, again, why are you feeling this way? Like it was just someone that you work with. You didn't know that, and it's like, no, but you still have those relationships and those connections, So again, I was really lucky just to have, again, my coworkers who were a big support. My supervisor was a big support. Again, my therapist. And like I said, just really, again, letting go of that guilt and accepting that I did everything I could during that time. But it did make, I really came really close to leaving, not just my job, but leaving the field.
Understandable.
Yeah. But then, I had to again really analyze of like, because the biggest fear was just losing someone. And then it's like someone had told me like, if it's death that you're running away from, death's going to be everywhere. You can be, and again, in insurance and someone can die.
Absolutely.
So like if that's what you're running away from, they're like, it's everywhere. And that's when I really had to take a look at like, okay, so is it death or is this really not the profession for me? And then it was like, it's the fear of losing another client, or losing someone again. But it's like, that's going to happen regardless, right? Professionally, personally. So then again, that's when I was able to really connect like, okay, no, this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is where I'm meant to be. And like I said, it took a couple of years, but eventually again, I ended up, enrolling in school and now pursuing my master's.
Right. That's also, I mean, I'm imagining too, working with someone for a couple of years that's high risk. That's also just emotionally draining during that time, because I mean, just in my time working with high risk clients, it's intense. And there are times when I'm anxious for them and I'm just like, is this going to be another day when I'm like really worried about if they're going to make it to the next day? And it's exhausting where, I mean, not to say that there's like a sense of relief, but to not have that feeling of exhaustion, afterwards, it's just like you can breathe a little bit.
No, yes, for sure. But I think it's also, again, just with that, it was just a realization too that it's like all we can do is just give them the resources, right? And give them the support. Like I said, at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do.
Absolutely.
So I think just kind of being okay with that. Like I said, your still emotions are going to come up and it's still going to affect you. But again, I think really letting go of that like responsibility of like, at the end of the day, it's their choice.
Right. Absolutely. How was that similar or different to the second client that you had lost?
Well, this one was my second one. Like I said,
okay.
We didn't really address, like I said, and I was like maybe 20 years old at that point. So I feel again, just my age in general, but I remember I got the news, we actually had plans with a friend and I ended up going out, ended up drinking and things like that. And it wasn't until a couple of days later, that I realized like, oh crap. It was me again coping with that news.
Yeah.
Because again, there was moments in that night where I wasn't myself, or I was doing things again that I normally wouldn't do, and I realized it was that. But again, over the years, I think I've been able to kind of process that, especially with losing the second one. Like I said, I think it hit me harder because I think it was a mixture of both losses. All in one. So I think as I really again allow myself to process the loss, and like I said, going to therapy, trying to find support groups, in a way, I not just process, my second client, but also the loss of the first.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because there's a lot of, I think, evolution that happens. I mean, when you're so young and that happens, I mean, of course, we're going to be coping in those different ways. And as time goes on, we're like constantly reprocessing things. And then we have a second loss and it's kind of like, oh, like if it just hits us in a different way.
Yeah, it does. And because in the first loss too, the family kind of blamed our agency. So we weren't able, they didn't give any information about the funeral or anything like that. The second one did. So I feel like, having that first experience, I was like, I need that closure. So again, I did go to the funeral services, with permission of my agency. And again, knowing that was going to be more healing for me as opposed to, just add more, sadness or trauma or whatever. So I did that. And like I said, also, what I do now pretty much every year on the anniversary of their death, I release a balloon, in their favorite color, and I'll wear
Oh,
their favorite color. So again, because it's also not just, for her, but for me as well, and
mm-hmm.
again, really honoring who they were as a person and the role that they played in my life, again, that they
Yeah.
really helped me feel like this is the profession that I really want to be in, that again, even
Mm-hmm.
if it means losing clients, even if it means, coming home crying, or, things like that. It's like at the end of the day, again, ultimately, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they help me see that. So like I said, it's every year, again, it's not only a celebration of them and their life and who they were, but also, again, what they really helped me see within myself.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went back to school, I would write them a note and then release it. And I told them, like, you'll be so happy I'm back in school. I'm getting my
Mm-hmm.
master's. I'm going to be a therapist one day. So that's one way again that I'm able to kind of honor them, but also
Yeah.
myself.
Oh, that's so beautiful too. Because I feel like social workers don't do that enough for themselves, is like continue to honor that grief in that way and just respect it. Mm,
Thank you.
beautiful. Now, I mean, with the halfway house, was there anything that you felt agency wise could have been different to better support the needs there, like the mental health needs, or do you feel like it was enough, but just not enough for that person?
Um, no, I honestly looking back, especially again having the experience in mental health now, and
Mm-hmm.
again my own personal journey with it, there really wasn't a lot of mental health services provided.
Mm-hmm.
Again, really the focus was just integrating them back into society, and at
Right.
moments it did feel more of like, again, we're just checking a box, for the state of
Mm-hmm.
what we need to kind of provide within this context.
Right.
So I feel like just not for that client itself, but for all of our clients during that time, again, mental health wasn't really addressed at the halfway house. Like I said, it was
Right.
really more again like the skills,
Mm-hmm.
and most of them were there for substance use charges. So again, it was AA and recovery
Mm-hmm.
focused more in that sense. But like I said, really not therapy.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what's so tough, I think, about the social work field is there's just always there's always so much going
Yes.
on, where I don't know, we have so many people to support. We have so many like assessments and things to keep track of where I mean we can't do it all. And so there's going to
No.
be these things that happen and through no fault of our own, but just through these like systematic issues that are happening.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the unfortunate part of the
Yeah.
field, right? But I think, like you said, yeah, also knowing like I did all that I could.
Yeah.
It's also the system is, not again just but against my client, but also against me as a
Mhm.
professional.
Yeah.
I'm also limited in what we can do. You know.
Mhm. Absolutely. Now, switching gears a little bit, talking about your role as a case manager, can you kind of describe what that work is like and what that entails?
Yeah, definitely a lot. Right? Because I feel like again the expectations of like the agencies, expectations of the client, right? Of
Yes.
like, oh, you're the person that's connected to resources. You're gonna fix everything, and you're gonna help me with everything, right? So it was definitely difficult. Again, I was a case manager in two different agencies, and I saw the
Hmm.
difference. In the first one, I had a caseload of like 75 clients, and yeah, and then
Wow.
expectation of, productivity. So we had to do 100 hours a month of direct service. And that was really the main highlight and the main concern, right? It wasn't
Hmm.
about, are you helping your clients? Are your clients, in a better space now that you work with them? It's like, are you meeting your productivity?
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately part of, the work that we do.
Hmm.
But I feel like that was really the main focus on that. So that it made it even more difficult to really do my job and my work with clients when again,
Right.
I'm being told day in, day out, are you meeting productivity? Are you, what I'm saying? And that's the main goal. I did express again, like I want to be able to have a client sit in front of me and really again be able to be present and listen to them and not so focus on the time,
Hmm.
and how much time we're working together and more again on the quality of the time that we're working together and as doing the
Hmm.
work, right? But again, in that agency, I felt like I was transportation. Again, I was, housing, I was employment services, I was everything. So that made it really difficult.
Hmm.
In the second agency that I went to, they had a transportation department. They had a housing department. They had, they had different departments. So that definitely
Yeah.
made my life a lot easier. And again, the focus was really are you helping the client and how are you
Mm-hmm.
helping the client? And you're not alone. We have this whole team of different people to kind of, to help, not just help you, but your client.
Right.
So that was, again, a beautiful thing to see. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, I can do this. So doing that, it definitely made it a lot easier. But like I said, I do feel like there's, again, a lot of expectations from, the agency and then the client as well, that they come to
Mm-hmm.
you with like, you know, again, all these problems or concerns, and that they really think you're going to help me and you're going to save me and you're going to change
Mm-hmm.
everything. And then it's like, no, I have a little more knowledge than you
Yeah.
do maybe in some things, or you know what I'm saying? Like, more resources, but it's like, other than that, I don't have that magic wand that's going to automatically, give you
Right.
SSI,
Mm-hmm.
automatically give you housing, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's definitely the biggest struggle and the biggest thing, again, of like,
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, I'm limited again to what I can do for you and how I can help you.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's one of the hardest things too, is everyone has a different idea about what we do and what's expected. And I
Yes.
think there's a lot of just like education and awareness about like, okay, what do social workers actually do? Which can be tough because I
Yes.
mean, social work based on the state that you're in, based on the agency that you're at, like that can be very different. So I kind of get why people don't really get it, but
Yes.
that's like, all right, give me a moment so I can explain what to expect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. What do you think? I mean, being a case manager, at least in the agency or like systematically, what do you think needs to change so case managers can do their job well and not be so overwhelmed with like a caseload?
I think just more than anything, being provided that support,
Yeah.
that as we're saying, like, hey, I'm overworked, I'm overwhelmed, and actually like
Hmm.
being listened to, and
Yeah.
again, just kind of like, what do you need? What can I do for you? And like I said, I understand, again, it comes down to like billing and being able to, sustain the program and things like that. But again, I think
Hmm.
not putting so much focus on the billing and the productivity, and again, more on like, what do how can we actually help your client? How, what
Hmm.
do they need type thing, whether it's coping skills, resources. I think that, being able, again, really focusing on the individual in front of you and not, again, how much billing you can get out of
Hmm.
it. I think for me that's what I think I needed, at least,
Oh
as
yeah.
a case manager, just being able to, yeah, focus on the client,
Mhm.
and what we can do for them, not what we're getting, from them or by working with them type thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's so tough. Like I get why billing hours are important, but it's like it takes away from our work. Like then we're not given the nuance to do what we need to do.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you're pursuing your MSW now, which is super exciting. What
Thank
are
you.
some of the biggest things that you've kind of learned in your process so far?
Like with school
Yeah,
or
with
just,
school. Hmm.
well, I think a lot of things too, it was more putting like, I think, names to things that I was like, oh, I've been doing this for so
Yeah.
long, but that's what you call it, right? So I think a lot of it was more putting the names to it. And again, realizing too that, that there is still a lot of like systematic problems and things that need to be
Hmm.
changed. Going into, again, I'm more of a micro person and,
Yeah.
again, focusing more on the individual, but realizing that you can't do micro without macro.
Hmm.
So as much as it pains me to say it, I feel like I eventually I'll be doing some type of macro work.
Hmm.
I don't know what that looks like yet, but I feel like, there's definitely a calling there. So again, just realizing again that, that we're limited to what we can do because of, the system that we live in and stuff like that. And another thing too, just that you can't do it alone, especially against social work. I think it really is like a team type
Hmm.
effort, and like I said, really again, leaning into your team, who you work with, your agency,
Hmm.
and again, that you're not alone, and just consulting, has been a big thing for me. I think just realizing that, that, hey, you might not have the answer, but your
Yeah.
coworker might, or, you know what I'm saying, or this person or that person. So again, really just networking and again, just connecting with others,
Hmm.
has been a huge thing for me that I definitely learned.
Absolutely. That is huge. What made you go back to your MSW? Is it because you wanted to like do the therapy route?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, I've always known I wanted to be a social worker. And I think working in that working as a case manager, really doing that work really connected with like, oh, wanting to do like in therapy and wanting to be a
Yeah.
therapist. So that was kind of the biggest calling or factor of kind of getting me back into school into doing
Hmm.
that. But again, life's happened, different things have come up. So again, just knowing too that, social work is just such a big thing, that you can kind of work in any type of setting.
Yeah.
So that as well, that, I can work in hospitals, that I can work in schools, I can work in, again, substance use treatment. So I think that as well, that having that flexibility of being able to kind of move, anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. As much as, because I am very similar, like I started off in community college and I got my associates first and kind of moved to bachelor's, then master's. And I really appreciate all the work that any level of social worker does, but there's a certain level of opportunity that opens up once you get your master's where you're like, all right, a little bit more flexibility, freedom here to do what I need to do.
Yes, no, I'm super excited. Like I said, I felt like I had an idea going into school of like, oh, I'm going to be a therapist or I'm going to do more private practice. But as we have different speakers come up and things like that, I'm like, oh my God, the possibilities are endless.
So much.
Now I really don't know what I want to do. Like I want to get my LCSW and that's a for sure thing. But other than that, I'm like, I could work anywhere, Don't know. People ask me and I'm like, I don't know. I can see myself in a hospital setting. Again, I can see myself again doing substance use, again, community mental health. So right now, I'm just super excited to finish and then see, what's out there because I can see myself doing a little bit of everything at this point.
Oh, that's so exciting. That shows like the passion that's still there too, that I think is important I was just talking to someone the other day, like for social workers to hold on to that passion because it is so easy to get burnt out, and to see that you've been in the field for like 15 years, like you said, and you have that fire within you. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I think definitely using your vacation time. Very good at that. I usually take at least 2 days out of the month off. So I think again, really being aware and listening to my body and my mind and what I need. And like I said, taking time off. I'm always, people are like, you're always taking time off. It's like, yeah, because you get it for a reason.
As you should.
Time off. And I think that's really helped me again, again, I have moments where I am burned down and stuff like that, but that's really, again, helped me just stay connected to myself and again, not lose the passion and also realizing like when you're getting there, then it's okay, then it's time for me to move, right? It's time for me to go to a different agency or again, just kind of reevaluate. Again, take a step back and reevaluate. Is it me? Is it, something going on? Is it this job? Is it, agency, the position type of thing. So I think just that, having that awareness and again, reminding yourself that it's okay to leave, it's okay to say no, to a job, to, certain work, certain tasks and things like that. I think that's helped me again, also keep the passion and,
Absolutely. On kind of a similar note, wrapping up now, what's just one piece of advice that you would give social workers in the field?
I think again, just asking for help, and remind yourself it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to have those moments to, to cry in front of your supervisor or things like that. I know again, especially in a professional setting, you're not supposed to do that. I'm the first person that it's like, I don't care. If I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it. Again, if I need support and that's what's going to come out, it's going to come out. So again, I think just being okay with who you are, again, authentically. And like you said, just asking for help. And just reminding yourself again that you're not alone. And I can just stay focused on your dreams and your goals and just continue going, continue pushing.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, this has been so great, Karina. I mean, you have so much important experience and I think just wisdom in the social work field. I'm excited for you and your MSW, which is so great. Now, for the people that are listening that want to keep following you, do you have like social media you want to plug right now?
So I do have just my personal Instagram basically at the moment, social media.
Great.
It's just different spellings of my name. So it's Kari Karkar, so KariKarkar, and then 3 7s at that. So again, just talk a lot about again my own personal struggles, my successes, and I do here and there throw things about again social work, or I share different pages or different things that kind of stand out to me as well.
Oh, that's exciting. Perfect. And for those listening, it'll be linked in the description below. And remember that if anything resonated with you today, please like, comment, and share, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Karina.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.